Hi there. Today I want to give you some 5 simple tips on how to avoid going bankrupt personally in business and how to avoid that trip to the bankruptcy court, which is not very pleasant, and also perhaps losing your house, losing your assets, losing everything in effect. Now, before I talk about that, I want to talk about retailers at the moment, and as the sort of recession looms and the furlough scheme comes to an end only next month, we see more and more retailers in a bit of trouble and having a bit of difficulty. And the latest one is the Ann Summers group. Now, Ann Summers, we laugh at Ann Summers. It's a sex toy shop and sexy lingerie and that sort of thing. But they're actually a very, very successful business who have really legitimised that sort of seedy side of business, where there used to be little shops in Soho with guys with dirty raincoats going in and buying books and that sort of thing, and they brought it into the high street, and partly through, or largely through, someone called Jacqueline Gold. I've met Jacqueline Gold. She's a nice lady. She does a lot of work for charities and helps people, and they brought it into the mainstream, into the high street, and of course they sell a lot of goods and a lot of product through Party Plan, this old Tupperware Party Plan, where ladies go out to people's houses and they organise little parties, and they give away a few gifts to the host, and people have a lot of fun. They open a bottle of wine, and they buy products, and hundreds of thousands of people have made their living through this sort of Party Plan. It's like a part-time business. You mainly do it in the evenings, of course. So it's a very successful company. And Jacqueline has now warned that unless landlords start to sort of negotiate sensibly, that they'll have to go into a CVA, a Company Voluntary Arrangement. She actually said that some landlords are fine, but others are burying their heads in the sand. Indeed, I saw a landlord not far from me. They've let Debenhams stores. If you're not in the UK, you wouldn't know Debenhams, but it's a very large store, been around, like donkey's years, maybe since the last century, and they are a big department store. And Debenhams wanted to stay in the area, but reduce the rent, and the landlord said no. And astonishingly, they've let Debenhams go. It's a prestige tenant. In fact, in that shopping park, it was the best tenant because it attracted people into the area. I mean, the other one was Marks and Spencer's, but Debenhams attracted people into the area, and the landlord has let them go. I just don't believe it. And now the place is empty. So it's crazy. Some landlords just don't seem to get it. Now she warned that if landlords don't act sensibly on the rents, they would simply ask to restructure the rent costs through a Company Voluntary Arrangement, a CVA, which then has the effect of wiping out a lot of its debt and wiping out the lease agreement liability, because a lease agreement is a binding agreement. It's a liability. It's like a noose around your neck, especially if you sign it personally. I'll talk about that in a second. So a CVA wipes out that liability and that debt, and it's a legally enforceable rescue deal that enables limited companies, not individuals, because an individual would go through an IVA, an individual arrangement, but enables limited companies to close down unprofitable parts of the business, such as a low-performing store or division, and reduce rents on others, but without going into bankruptcy or liquidation, which would wind up the whole company, and then the whole company goes down and it's all sold off and people lose their jobs and everything's shut down, and then the administrators then pay off whatever debts there are and the tax man and that sort of thing. So it's a halfway house towards bankruptcy. In America, they call it Chapter 11. Companies like large airlines, Delta, I believe, and Donald Trump has had several businesses go through Chapter 11 and come out the other end. So she said that, Jacqueline Gold said that the landlords need to recognise the change. Ultimately, no retailer can afford to run stores unprofitably, especially with business rates set to return next spring. And the challenge of property costs is going to become more and more pressing than ever. And I think she's right. So she said that a CVA is no idle threat. Now, in my experience, landlords can be very, very ruthless, especially commercial landlords can be really ruthless, and they stamp on smaller tenants like a giant stamping notice. I know you're going to pay, and if you don't pay, I'll make you personally bankrupt. And I've seen small business owners being brought to the bankruptcy court over relatively small debts just because of a unpaid rent and a binding lease agreement. In fact, they've said to the landlord, can you let me off of this agreement? I can't run this business. And the landlord said, no, I'm going to still go after you for the rent. Even if you close the business down, the shop down or the office down, I'm still going after you for the rent. Now, they can't really do that so much with the big companies because the big companies have a different structure. First of all, they're a limited company. They're not an individual. So I want to talk about 5 tips to avoid personally going bankrupt in business. Well, first of all, the obvious one, as I've talked about here, is to avoid signing long leases in your own name. Avoid signing long leases altogether, I would say, but especially in your own name. A long lease is renting an office, renting a shop or a premises or a factory. Never sign that in your own name. Always do it as a part of a company or a limited company, because they will go after you, these landlords. And because it's in your own name, you have personal assets. You might have a house. You might have money in the bank. You might have other assets, cars and that sort of thing. So the landlord knows that if they go after you, and they will, they can seize your goods as part of the settlement. So they can take you to the bankruptcy court and they can force you to sell your house or your cars or your goods or money in the bank in order to pay the landlord and for them to get their money back. So avoid signing those long leases. Enter into more flexible agreements. Say, look, I don't want to sign a 10-year lease. I'll lease it for 6 months. I'll lease it for a year. And if the landlord says no, just walk away. I've done this on many occasions. I've had offices and I've signed short-term agreements or with several break clauses because I know what landlords are like. They're greedy buggers. You know, they will get you like that and put your neck in a vice. You know what a vice is, and they'll hold you there until they pay the money. They'll keep squeezing the vice tighter and tighter. Also avoid signing personal guarantees. Now, many times if you're taking a lease in a limited company, the landlord will say, yes, you can have the lease in that limited company, but I want a personal guarantee. And most people say, yeah, okay, I'm fine, because they think, well, I can always pay it. There's no problem. But then there might come a time when the business can't pay that rent, and then you've signed the personal guarantee. They want you to pay it personally. And you know, at the time when you're signing it, business is great. You know, you've got a rental agreement for £1,000 or £2,000 a month, £5,000 might not seem a lot, but when the income stops coming in, and you know everything is, all bets are off, the business is not performing as it has in this COVID-19 lockdown, then that can seem like a lot of money. It can eat into your savings and literally wipe you out. So don't sign personal guarantees. Just say no. Say, no, I don't want to sign a personal guarantee. I can't. I've been asked to sign personal guarantees and I've always avoided them because I've seen people being made bankrupt literally because of a personal guarantee. They had a big company in a limited company, but because they signed a personal guarantee for a loan, they were made personally bankrupt. So don't do it. And then limit your personal liabilities and debts. Limit liabilities like a lease or any form of liability means something you'd have to pay, a loan, a lease agreement like for a photocopier or all these things. Just limit those liabilities. Get a second-hand photocopier, get a second-hand car. Don't keep taking out long leases and car finance, and just avoid those debts. And obviously personal debts like credit card debts at 19%, 20%, 30%. It's absolutely crazy to take out those personal debts. If you're in debt already, try and pay them off, try and get rid of those liabilities. So that's the third tip. Number 4 is incorporate your business. Never operate as a sole trader or a partnership. Always have a limited company with limited liability. If you don't know what that means, that's another course altogether. But it basically is like a wrapper around your business, and you're only limited by the assets in that company. You have no personal liability for that company's debts. The company becomes a separate entity from you as a person. And you know, obviously go and see your accountant about this. This is the other, obviously take advice when you're setting up a business. But many people go into business as a sole trader, or they get together with a friend and say, let's be a partnership. That's the worst thing you can do. Always have a limited company and then you can split the shares. But partnerships are even worse than sole traders, because you can be liable for their problems and their liabilities as well. So just avoid those. There's something called joint and several liability in a partnership. Just don't do it. I've seen many people running, usually things like builders, roofers, contractors. They run their business as John Smith on their own. John Smith, sole trader. And, it's not only the debts that they could be liable for, but if they mess up on a job, they can be sued for tens of thousands of pounds. If they injure somebody, an employee might sue them. All these things can happen. And if you're a sole trader, they'll go after you personally, and they'll grab your neck and take everything from you, your house, your cars, everything. So always, I've seen even financial advisors running their business as a sole trader. And I said, why are you running as a sole trader? He said, oh, we've got liability insurance. Yeah, but what if it doesn't cover you? What if the insurers say, well, sorry, you're not covered because you didn't tick that box, or you didn't send the right letter, or you've lost the case? They might just pull out. Insurance companies don't like paying out, right? They like to find excuses not to pay out. And I was in the insurance business for 25 years, so I know. And I said, why do you, because as a financial advisor or a mortgage advisor, liabilities can run on for years and years and years. Something you sold somebody 10 years ago, they can come back to you and say, well, this policy is the wrong policy, this pension plan is the wrong, this investment didn't work. They can come after you for years. And in fact, liability insurance, they have run-on insurance. Even if you close your business down, there are still liabilities. So just have a limited company. You can close the company down when you're finished. You can do all sorts of things to limit your liabilities. And number 5 is to take out liability insurance. Always have those professional indemnity insurance, professional liability insurance, employer's liability insurance, every kind of insurance. Just have it. They're not expensive, but you must have it in case you're sued for something that goes wrong. So that's the 5 tips. 1, avoid signing long leases, especially in your own name. 2, avoid signing personal guarantees. 3, limit your personal liabilities and debts. 4, incorporate your business, never run as a sole trader or a partnership. And 5, always take out personal liability insurance that covers you if something goes wrong with your business. Like you screw up in some way, then you're covered by the insurance. Now, remember that individuals suffer most from debts and can lose everything, including their home. The likes of Jacqueline Gold, Richard Branson, Donald Trump, they're not going to lose their home or all their assets if one of their companies fails because they're not a sole trader. Even if their whole business goes down, they're separate from that. The limited company or the incorporated company, or you might call it a corporation in other countries, that's a separate entity from you as an individual, unless you've signed a personal guarantee. So just avoid that. So there you go. There's your 5 tips. Now, the above information should not be treated as personal financial advice, because I don't know your personal situation. You need to take advice from your own advisors, from your accountants, your lawyers, who know your personal circumstances. You can find more articles at moneytipsdaily.com. And thanks for listening and for tuning in. Thanks also to people on Facebook Live. Great to see you. Always interested in your comments. Hi to Rich there, out there in the Philippines. Great to see you. Hope you found it interesting. And if you have any comments, please feel free to make any comments. I'll also be I'll be setting up my own wealth coaching and wealth mentorship. If you're interested in that, just let me know, and I'll put details of my details on this posting. So thanks for listening. Have a great evening wherever you are. This is Charles Kelly, bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate, and enjoy more money. Have a great evening or day wherever you are. Thank you.